Ayo, Shalom.
Turn my failures to lessons, losing ain't an option, waiting on my blessings. Turn my failures to lessons, losing ain't an option, waiting on my blessings. I'm crying out, can't hold it in, gotta stay the course, we supposed to win. Done seen it all, it's time to prosper, elevate, it's time to prosper. The world at your neck like a violin. Instruments of cruelty gon' be their end. Satan gon' knock, but don't let him in. We born in a battle that'll never cease. I believe, I believe, I believe. I believe, I believe, I believe. We got our dreaming projects full of broken hearts. Picking up the pieces, this is just a start. Somewhere there's a flower trying to bloom out the concrete. I left a trail full of dry petals, trying to spark the mind and not the barrel. If I can't smell, I won't like much. Things of the world don't entice us. If she loyal, God-fearing, then you wife her. We the chosen, you can't sign her. World for the meek, this is all us. Earth having labor pains, soon it's a due day. Yeah. Earth having labor pains, soon it's a due day. Yeah.
Understand that your biggest battle is you. It's you.
Gotta trust the purpose, he got plans for you. Pray to the Lord, and he'll guide you through. Forgive us for our sins, have mercy on our souls. Fearing your judgment that keep me on my toes. Let God be true, and every man that liar. Cast your burdens on him and watch your weight get lighter. You gotta weather through them storms, but them clouds don't stay. But give me some clarity and show me your way. And put a hedge around my home and protect my gate. Yesterday I seen a man forgive a man for killing his son. It showed me hope, but the war ain't won. As long as you try, he extend his love. Every soldier got a story to tell. Constantly watching, only signs will tell. I found hope living cross from hell. And it's a war outside, no one is safe. Cause we the lost sheep, led astray. Just pace yourself when you fall in this race. Adversity is just a test of your faith. Embracing your love, I can't wait no more. Seek him now before he close that door. Conquer self when I in a war. Conquer self when I in a war. Gotta conquer self when I in a war. It's time to conquer. It's time to overcome. Fight temptation. Fight this world. Gotta trust the purpose, he got plans for you. I pray to the Lord, and he'll guide you through. Forgive us for our sins, have mercy on our souls. Fearing your judgment that keep me on my toes. Let God be true, and every man a liar. Cast your burdens on him and watch your weight get lighter. You gotta weather through them storms, but them clouds don't stay. But give me some clarity and show me your way. And put a hedge around my home and protect my gate. Yesterday I seen a man forgive a man for killing his son. It showed me hope, but the war ain't won. As long as you try, he extend his love.
That's a bad guy.
I keep on striving for a better way of life. The devil's disguising, the earth in turmoil and in strife. We are surviving, looking for the better days. Lord, protect our life, guide us closer to your light. He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. I'm trying to run this race, I'm trying to finish in first place, and here, well done my servant, oh.
Rip me out my chains, cuz I don't wanna be here. Thankful to the Father, I got eyes so I can see clear. Taught us that the sickness we inherit is hereditary. Reputation could be passed down to make us legendary. Seems as if the strong could bear the burden and we never weary. But the thoughts that cross my mind in real time is hella scary. When you die and meet your demise, they say you viraled in. But on the earth there's no checking in when niggas spiraling. The therapy the music tend to give us with the slightest pin, or make the wind feel less destructive when we surviving it. I only enter into this music to remind you, with hopes and wishes that this light I'm vibing with finds you. And even when the shade is great, push through, motherfucker, and shine through. Cause we the hope and the elect, I'm talking times two. We the hope, we the elect, I'm talking times two. And when it's all said and done, it's only you. In a dark place, they tried to eradicate the whole dog race. They took the earth by a hand and ripped the crown off the heads of the ones that own this land. And then they made a brand, they put cement over the bones and made businesses. And then they told us this was our home. And then they tried to replicate our religion and made it a clone. And then they told us we was wicked, but if we bowed to white Jesus, somehow we would receive forgiveness. Seeing the presence of our fathers on the top of all our wish lists. And even used shoes was wrapped and presented to us as gifted. We believed in the wooden cross. When we seen black stars on television, we stood in awe. Niggas that chop your legs down and ask how couldn't jaw. Anger misplaced for opportunity, then who wouldn't brawl? If it's all love, then why you niggas break your treaty? The hood ain't a place that's known to comfort, uplift the needy. But I got a shepherd in the valley and he leads me. When we get blessed, then it's true that we all eat. We come from the colleges and churches, some of us all street. Salvation, everything, my life is what it costs me. Warring against negative forces, get them off me. Standing on business, nigga, I'm on top of the ship. Battlefield uncertain, so I'm clutching the grip. I'm a warrior, never let my heart turn weak. Never let my pride triumph over the side of me that's meek. We the people of the creek, from the plains of the savannah, passed down oral history. The sister of my grandma, know that they witnessed the recollection and they can't stand you. We striving for a better day, more opportunities like better work and better pay, to live in liberty and know the Lord and not the devil's way. If you understand, rock to this, let the letter play, cause the doors are open, so you know we seek a better way, striving for a better life.
He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. I'm trying to run this race, I'm trying to finish in first place, and here, well done my servant, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. When you see some light, that's a breakthrough. Concrete jungle, it's a damn zoo. Eyes wide, while they live on snooze. I hope in what you touch, impact some souls. Picture perfect, nigga, like a centerfold. I'm all about my bread, that's a dinner roll. Do it on my lonely, you can send the word. I remember drinking until my speech was slurred. But karma is the bitch, you better treat her right. It's power in these thoughts, she gave me mic. But this your life, nigga roll the dice. Eviction notice, try not to notice. But through your ups and downs, trying to find your purpose. Girded in this truth, blocking evil forces. Good intentions, create your invention. No huddle, fourth and inches. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kind of bold. Keep on trying, part of a lion. Keep on climbing, on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. But since the snotty nose, I've been kinda bold. You headed to them streets, trying to fill the void. Trying to box with God, trying to win our floor. All these traps, gotta count the joy. I lift my voice up like a trumpet though. Wash away these sins and these transgressions. Change your outlook, that's your only weapon. But we the black Jews, these is mental Jews. Trying to set a pace while they drive on cruise. Can't trust their actions, they intent is cruel. I'm from a sunny place where it's shady people. Erase your history and they say we equal. Do your all in this world, they make you feeble. Built these corporations, look how they treat you. Get up on your grind, I'm thinking ownership. I know your past mistakes equate to something better. He give visions to the blind, Helen Keller. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on your way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. Since the snotty nose, I've been kinda bold. Keep on trying, heart of a lion. Keep on climbing on my way to Zion. Highs and lows, no time to fold. But since the snotty nose, I've been kinda bold.
Ayo, shalom.
All right. Shalom, shalom to everyone online. Shalom to those coming in. All of you see the title of the lesson, The Cost of the Heavy Yoke. Tonight's lesson is going to surround not just precepts, but articles, history, and very important foundational things we need to know about one of the biggest things that affects us as the Lord's chosen but accursed people today. Tonight we're going to get into, how can I put, the estate of health and how much Israel is directly affected with today's society and standards pertaining to health, and why the death rate is so high in our communities, and also on behalf of the fact that we are much more prone to everything when it comes to diseases and illnesses inside this system that is America, or Babylon, if you will. And we're going to understand how, we're going to understand why, and we're going to get into the information we need to know about it and how we can combat it. First off, where we're going to begin is Sirach chapter 40 and verse 1. Just make sure you read loud, huh? Page 94.
This is Sirach chapter 40, verse 1.
Go ahead.
Great travail is created for every man,
Go ahead.
and a heavy yoke is upon the sons of Adam.
So great travail is created for every man, but a heavy yoke is upon the sons of Adam. This is separating these two, and this is categorizing the importance of these two particular and specific classes of men, and or peoples, if you will. Great travail, trials and tribulations, is a respecter to no one that is living and breathing on this earth. But a heavy yoke is upon the sons of Adam. That is very key and important, because aside from that fact, the heavy yoke that is upon the sons of Adam is very particular and denotes that there's one people above all else that have it worse than everybody else does. Go ahead.
from the day that they go out of their mother's womb to the day that they return to the mother of all things.
From the day that we are born to the day that we return to the mother of all things. We are spirit, but we have to remember we are dust as well. We come out of the womb as the dust as we are, to the dust we return again, being earth. So we need to understand that more than everyone else, we are primarily affected by everything. And much more importantly, just as we are at the top and we are the chosen, well, when we're not the chosen, we're not, and when we're not number one due to the Lord displacing us, we are at the very bottom of the totem pole of nations. As Kawan put, we are the chosen seed, which means that we were once the chosen seed, displaced and kicked out of our homeland due to our disobedience, and now we are the accursed seed, if you will. But through the sacrifice of YHWH, we are now living and uplifting ourselves in him, living to be past the curses. Kawan put, we are chastised, or other else we are bastards. That is why the Most High chastises his chosen. He chastises his son, who is the nation and people of Israel. So, let's get the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 43. Yep, Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 43.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high.
Right.
And thou shalt come down very low.
Which means that the stranger, we know who are his oppressor, primarily who is Esau. At the helm, he is number one. We also know we have Moab, Elam, Ishmael, the rest of the other nations that are all in prosperous positions in high places rather than the children of Israel. They will get above us very high, and we are going to become very low, which means we are at the bottom of the totem pole. We are at the lowest stature of society as a people. This is why the black dollar goes into every single other community but its own. Read to verse 44.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. You will not lend to him, because he's going to lend to you, because he's in a position of power and authority to do so. He will be the head and you'll be the tail, which means you are at the very bottom to receive the very last, and you are the crumbs. You are the dog waiting for the crumbs to fall from the master's table. If you want to make it more pictorial to show the position that we are in as a people. So it's important to realize that Esau being number one, as well as the rest of the nations being above us, we're at the bottom. When it comes to statistics, when it comes to crime, when it comes to poverty, when it comes to healthcare, we are at the bottom of everything. Every time you read an article, anything you could possibly read or imagine or pull up, what does it always say? It always says black first, or Hispanic, or like they like to say, Native Indian or Alaskan Indian, which we're just going to say Native American because we're also going to include Gad in that as well. That is also a part of Ephraim being the Northern Kingdom. So every time that you read black and Hispanic, it's no different than when you're reading the biblical text and you see Judah and Israel. It's no different when you see Judah and Joseph. That is what that is today. Black, Judah, Hispanic, Ephraim. It's just modern day Ebonics for what we are biblically known as. Those are just our modern day names. Come on, put no circular economy for us, or American Indian, Kana, as they classify it within the articles. So tonight we're actually going to read about how and why we have this number one problem when it comes to healthcare inside the system. It is not just historical. It is not just systemic. We need to understand the roots of it. And we need to pull ourselves out of this state of ignorance
Ignorant also being not aware or not in the knowing of why we are so predominantly affected and less likely to be taken care of when it comes to the healthcare system. Apayak, in the notes, can you pull up the first article? I'm gonna read it as gonna read it off my phone as all of you guys will be following along. Not that one. Structure. It begins with structural racism. All right. This is structural racism and historical and modern U.S. healthcare policy. This is from healthaffairs.org. Says this was published back in February 2022. All right. To begin from the abstract, it says the COVID-19 pandemic has illuminated and amplified the harsh reality of health inequities experienced by racial and ethnic minority groups in the United States. Members of these groups have been disproportionately, that's always a key word they like to use, disproportionately, when it comes to talking about statistics and quoting and using this one particular word with minorities. And disproportionately been affected and died from COVID-19, yet they still lack equitable access to treatment and vaccines. Lack of equitable access to high-quality healthcare is in large part a result of structural racism in U.S. healthcare policy, which structures the healthcare system to advantage the white population and disadvantage racial and ethnic minority populations. This article provides historical context and a detailed account of modern structural racism in healthcare policy, highlighting its role in healthcare coverage, financing, and equity. Listen to this closely. The next paragraph. This says, members of racial and ethnic minority groups have long suffered from health inequities in the United States, and the COVID-19 pandemic has mercilessly worsened many of these inequities. As of November 2021, or 2025, now this is going on 4 years, American Indian and Alaska Native, Black and Latino people of all have suffered from higher rates of hospitalizations and deaths related to COVID-19 compared with white people. These inequities result in large part from racial and ethnic minority populations' inequitable access to healthcare, which persists because of structural racism in health care policy. Do you guys see the particular groups they compared? They said American Indian, Black and Latino people all have suffered from higher rates of hospitalizations and deaths related to COVID-19 compared to white people. Why are these three groups of people being compared to this one? The fate of man is betwixt the heel and the hand. That's the only reason why these groups of people are being compared to one another. Let's skip down. Apayak, skip down to structural racism in early U.S. healthcare policy. All right. This says, since the Jim Crow era, 1875 to 1968, 1968 is really not that far off, racism has implicitly and explicitly been an integral part of the U.S. government's structuring and financing of the healthcare system. For example, in 1946, the federal government enacted the Hospital Survey and Construction Act, commonly known as the Hill-Burton Act, to provide for the construction of public hospitals and long-term care facilities. Although the act mandated that healthcare facilities be made available to all without consideration of race, it allowed states to construct racially separate and unequal facilities. In addition, federal programs such as Medical Assistance for the Age Program, also known as CURMILS, which provided healthcare to the poor, were underfunded and few states participated, especially states with large populations of Black Americans. Even if the healthcare facility was accessible to racial and ethnic minority populations, they often did not have the money or health insurance to pay for the care available. The federal government enacted a number of laws that not only supported the occupational segregation of racial and ethnic minority workers in low-wage jobs in the service, domestic, and agricultural industries, but also excluded racial and ethnic minority workers from laws that increased wages and offered protections for collective bargaining that resulted in paid sick leave and health insurance for other workers. Why am I reading all this? This is where all of it begins when it comes to healthcare. This is where all of it begins when all of you are wondering why so much of us as a people don't go to the doctors, are hesitant to, and why a lot of us just throw our lives away. We fuel McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King. We fuel all the fast food places. This article is explaining why. Why are we going to take care of ourselves and we're just going to die off anyway? During slavery, when we were being experimented on, as the Captain Shamak had brought out with Dr. Marion Sims, who was the father of gynecology, who has a statue of him in New York, our lives were nothing. And this is also why they don't often really care. Or in the killing of Mike Brown, if any of you remember, they just left his body lying in the street for hours before he was actually tended to and his body was picked up and carried off. This is where all this comes from. If we were never cared for in the system, why are we going to care for ourselves? Ganan said because they know who the healers are. Kawan said because they target us, another form of eugenics. Absolutely. Shalom, Sister Ida. Ganan said your cabinet and what's in your fridge should be your medicine. Absolutely. There's another part. There's another part I want to get before we close out this article. I open back up the article again, skip down to the paragraph that says during the civil rights era. This says during the civil rights era, the federal government enacted two of the largest public safety net programs, Medicare and Medicaid. They were both created to cover people who deemed to be serving of help who did not have health insurance. Medicare is a federal health care program that primarily covers the elderly and the disabled, whereas Medicaid is a joint federal and state health care program for certain categories of the very poor, pregnant women, children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Did all of you notice there's no mention or notion to men inside this? Who just so happen to be dying from hypertension, i.e. high blood pressure, diabetes, and are the ones more locked up than the women. Did you notice that there's no mention of men or any notion pointing towards men for Medicaid and Medicare? There's no mention of that, which is why a lot of the men now don't care and are dying off. A good reason for the fact of why so many of them have thrown their lives away. We're good with this article. Apaya, can you pull up Google? Pull up Google Baba Koshah. Ganan said systemically that have made it to where your social economic status determines the care you receive. Khan, the same people that have limited resources to healthier choices are dying off due to access to healthier choices. Khan, can you type in the search bar What population in the U.S. is most affected by diseases? What population in the U.S. is most affected by diseases? Chances. Wanted to show you guys something I discovered earlier. Should have the AI pulled up. It says in the U.S., racial ethnic minorities, particularly Native Americans and individuals with low socioeconomic status, those living in rural areas, and those with limited access to healthcare are disproportionately, there goes that word again, affected by diseases. Racial ethnic minorities are 1.5 to 2.0 times more likely than whites to have most of the major chronic diseases. Native Americans have a higher risk and higher rates of chronic diseases compared to other racial and ethnic groups. For example, Native Americans are twice as likely to have diabetes as whites. Individuals with low socioeconomic status are more likely to experience health disparities. This is also due to the fact that Esau put them and placed them on reservations. Could you scroll down a little bit up? It also says those living in rural areas have a higher prevalence of multiple chronic conditions compared to those living in urban areas. People with limited access to healthcare are more likely to experience poorer health outcomes. This is important. Why? Because we're not going to seek out help from the same people that are oppressing us. This is important. Why? Because this is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Native American Indians encompassing the tribe of Gad. And if it affects Gad, yes, it affects the rest of the tribes as well. When I had searched this up earlier, it actually said that African Americans, or biblically known as the tribe of Judah, was where Native Americans was, and filled in the blanks for the rest of the information that is now provided. Let's get Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. Laquasha definitely sounds like our people. Come on. Every time you read disproportionately, you see minority, you only know that there's only one group of people predominantly that it could be talking about. They like to include other groups just because, but we know who's at the top to be affected by everything, and that's the reason and purpose I'm bringing this up. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 6.
Go ahead.
My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge.
Read that again.
My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. We know that due to our disobedience, we've inherited curses. And we know that due to disobedience and Moses telling us to choose life, we've chosen the opposite and contrary, and now death has cleaved unto us as a whole. This is important because we have to realize that, it's not just a physical death that this is also talking about and being destroyed. This is also talking about on behalf of the fact that your mind is gone. Your spirit has been vanquished and crushed. You no longer have sanity to properly think and make rational and logical choices and decisions. We're destroyed for the lack because we are unaware, we do not know. And in the system where everything is entirely against us, we're not even in the know of how much is against us and how much of these statistics are going to prove that everything being against us, being inside this enlightenment and truth of YHWH, we have to put life back into ourselves and also put life back into our people. So with that being said, Apaya, can you pull up the second article? Fast stats, death and mortality. All right. This is from the CDC.gov, National Center for Health Statistics. This is giving statistics on the age people die at, how often, and the number of deaths for leading causes of deaths. The first thing I want all of you to see when you look at this list is the life expectancy of 77.5 years. The U.S.'s general life expectancy is 77.5 years. Does anyone? Well, no, that the answer is obvious. Let's get the book of Psalm chapter 90 and verse 10.
This is Psalms chapter 90, verse 10. The 3 days of our years are 80 years and 10.
So Moses said, this is also a prophecy. Moses said the days of our years are 80 and 10, meaning the days of our years are 70. Keep reading.
The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years.
If they be reasoned by strength, meaning you're probably going to be fortunate enough to at least see 80 years. Your life expectancy was cut down, or excuse me, the Lord had cut down our life expectancy of roughly almost 1,000 years to 120 years. He capped it at in the book of Genesis. And here it is, Moses is saying within this psalm that we are going to live to 70 years if by reason of strength you make it, at least in this system with the way it's designed, with the air being tainted, the food being poisoned, and this nation literally profiting and marketing off of death, you're lucky to even see 80. Look at the life expectancy in this article here is 77.5 years, and you see how that perfectly matches. Keep reading.
Yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away.
Right. Because we are soon cut off and we fly away, meaning we pass off and die. Let's read these statistics. So it says at the top, life expectancy is 77.5 years. The infant mortality rate is 5.6 deaths per 1,000 live births. So every 1,000 babies that are born, there's 5 that are going to die. The number of deaths for leading causes of death in the United States are heart disease, 702,880 deaths. Cancer, 608,371 deaths. Accidents, 227,039 deaths. COVID-19, funny enough, that's still around, 186,552 deaths. Stroke, the Captain Shamak had brought this out and how it's doubling amongst the younger population between the age bracket of 20 to 40. Stroke is 165,393 deaths. Chronic lower respiratory diseases, 147,382 deaths. Alzheimer's disease, 120,122 deaths. Diabetes, 101,209 deaths. Nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, 57,937 deaths. Last one is chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, 54,803 deaths. Why am I bringing this out? Because heart disease is the first thing on the list. We all know people that are either suffering from high blood pressure and are very, very stressed out. Stress leads to bitterness. Bitterness leads to anger. Anger leads to rage. Rage leads to losing parts and portions of your mental health and your physiological health that are very much damaging you and affecting your heart rate, increasing it so much that it's increasing your blood pressure, pouring into all of the aspects of your life, shortening your life. But not say people are dying younger than that, especially these days. Absolutely, it is the number one killer. Stress is the number one silent killer that's actually leading and pouring into the rest of these statistics, if any of you didn't know and weren't aware of that. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 21.
This is Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 21.
What?
For death is come up into our windows, and is entered into our palaces, to cut off the children from without and the young men from the streets.
Literally. Death has come up into our windows, meaning our closest places, and is coming to everybody. Death is not a respecter of persons in these times we're living in. Whether it be by homicide, whether it be by jail, if that's where someone's spending the rest of their life, whether it's by food, whether it's by the air, no matter what it is, death has come into our windows and is cutting our young men off from the streets. It's the men that are predominantly at the forefront of all these deaths that are being reported according to these statistics. Get Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 5.
This is Jeremiah chapter 15, verse 5. For who shall have pity upon thee, O Jerusalem? Or who shall be bemoaneth thee? Or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest?
So who's going to ask and come to the side to ask how you're doing? Who's going to feel sorry and feel bad for you when you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and you still are to this very day in society? This is a rhetorical question. Apaya, can you pull up the first picture? I'm going to show everyone the graphs and charts by the statistics so that we can physically see how these are, how what we're reading about is affecting our people. I'm going to show different things that's affecting our people across the board, so all of you can physically see how we're being affected. The infant mortality rate in the United States in 2021 and in 2022. Should be the first picture up. Infant mortality rate. All right, there we go. All right, so we're gonna flip through pictures just so that we're able to physically see the statistics that we're all discussing. That's being brought out and discussed. So this is infant mortality rate in the United States in 2021 and 2022 by race and ethnicity of the mother. The first one you see is American Indian. The light blue is 2021. The dark blue is 2022. Clearly for most, 2022 was higher, though it was more of the end of the pandemic. You see how high American Indian is, and you have Asian and non-Hispanic. Then you have Black and non-Hispanic, of course, which is the highest or has the highest mortality rate out of all of them. You also have Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, non-Hispanic. Then you have white, non-Hispanic, and then you have Hispanic there or Latino at the end. Clearly, the groups mostly affected would be Black and the American Indian on this graph. All right, can you pull up the next one? A drug overdose death by per 100,000. All right, it's a little blurry. Drug overdose deaths per 100,000 by race and ethnicity. You have 2018 dark blue, 2019 light blue, and then 2020, which would be light orange. You have white. Definitely has increased from 2018 to 2020. You have black, which far outdoes the white concerning 2020, all the way up at the highest. You have Hispanic, lower, surprise, that has increased over the years as well. And then all the way at the fifth right, you have AI, that's American Indian or Native American, at the highest rate in percentage pertaining to drug overdose deaths in 2020. So again, what this is showing is that look how, as that word is, disproportionately we are affected by these statistics and rates pertaining to how much is going on and the lack of healthcare that we don't have, that we don't get and choose not to get. And look how affected we are by it. Apayak, next one, U.S. homicide gun deaths. All right, this is per 1 million people ages 15 to 34. This is 2014. This is 14 years ago. I'm sure it's much more worse now. It says per 1 million people ages 15 to 34. This is 11 years ago. Black males number at 646. Latino males following right behind, number at 110 males. Black females number at 57, followed by white males 31, Latino females 16, white females 11. No matter what statistic it is that you look at, no matter what category, though this isn't pertaining to healthcare and injury, but pertaining to killing by guns, there's always going to be Israel at the forefront of everything. Apayak, pull up the last one. The maternal mortality risk. Last one. All right, this is the last picture. This says black women face 3 times the maternity. It's a lot. Black women face 3 times the maternal mortality risk as white women. Black mothers are at 55 out of 100,000 live births. White mothers are at 19. Hispanic mothers are at 18. So for every 100,000 babies born, black women or 55 black mothers giving birth will die, is what this means. So I want all of you to see, no matter what it is, how much Israel is at the forefront of these statistics and how much it predominantly affects us more than everyone and anyone else, which is the point of what these pictures are. This is the cost of the heavy yoke. All right. Apayat, can you pull up the next article? How racist policies undermine efforts to improve black health. Remember, we're destroyed for lack of knowledge. It's because we're unaware, we do not know. And also due to the fact that we were experimented on and still are to this very day, we don't understand and take in as a whole that we're much more likely to die and not be cared for or simply just not go to the doctors due to this deep, dark racial history that's very melancholic that the U.S. carries to this very day. The Jim Crow system is still very much alive and well. To this very day, you brothers that are in the South, there are still sundown towns that still very much exist. I believe it was during the flooding that happened in North Carolina last year. A lot of Esau was affected that were sundown towns, if I'm not mistaken. This article is actually going to speak to some states in the South, so please pay close attention. This is from October 24th. This is literally a couple of months ago. Black Americans still suffer worse health. Here's why there's so little progress. This is King Street, South Carolina. One morning in late April, a small brick health clinic along the Thurgood Marshall Highway bustled with patients. There was Joshua McCrae, 69, who was a public school bus driver who for 4 years after catching COVID is still too weak to drive. Luvenia McKinney, 77, arrived complaining about shortness of breath. Ponzella McClary brought her 83-year-old mother-in-law, Lula, who has memory issues and had recently taken a fall. Morris Brown, a family practice physician who owns the clinic, rotated through Black patients nearly every 20 minutes. Some struggled to walk, others pulled oxygen tanks, and most carried three pill bottles or more for various chronic ailments. But Brown called them lucky with enough health insurance or money to see a doctor. The clinic serves patients along the infamous Corridor of Shame, a rural stretch of South Carolina with some of the worst health outcomes in the nation. There is a lot of hopelessness here, Brown said. I was trained to keep people healthy, but like 80% of the people don't come to see the doctor because they can't afford it. They're just dying off. So can you clearly see that not only can these people not afford to see the doctor, if they're dying off, what's the use in going to the doctor when you can't even afford it? Which is meaning that because they can't afford it, there's no point in even going. It says about 50 miles from the sandy beaches and golf courses along the coastline of this racially divided state, Morris's independent practice serves the predominantly Black town of roughly 3,200 people. The area has stark healthcare provider shortages and high rates of chronic diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. And we just read that these are the things that are the highest in the statistics that we were just looking at according to CDC.org. And notice that the last one being heart disease is the first thing on the list, killing roughly over 600,000 Americans every year that are disproportionately affecting Black Americans. And we could add Latino and Native American right behind. And continuing, it says such racial inequities are especially severe across the Southeast, home to most of the country's Black population. But South Carolina remains one of the few states where lawmakers refuse to expand Medicaid, despite research that it shows it would provide medical insurance to hundreds of thousands of people and create thousands of healthcare jobs across the state. The decision means that there will be more preventable deaths in the 17 poverty-stricken counties along Interstate 95 that comprise the Corridor of Shame, Brown said. There is a disconnect between policymakers and real people, he said. The African Americans who make up most of the town's population are not the people in power. The U.S. healthcare system, by its very design, delivers different outcomes for different populations, said a June report from the National Academics of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. Those racial and ethnic inequities also contribute to millions of premature deaths, resulting in loss of years of life and economic productivity. Over a recent 2-decade span, mounting research shows the United States has made almost no progress in eliminating racial disparities in key health sectors, even as political and public health leaders vow to do so. Now, in this, it's going to mention a couple of states, but here's why I'm reading this. During the pandemic, beginning back in 2020 when everything happened, some of you were working in the healthcare sector. Some of you were working in public. Some of you were out in the open. Some of you may have been doing customer service. The people that are doing those jobs and in those particular areas pertaining to the fields of the workforce were predominantly affected by COVID-19. And not even just that, they were the ones that were getting more sick and dying off. And I'm sure a lot of you noticed. I'm going to skip down. Continuing, Apayak, if you could scroll down to the legacy of racism. In the legacy of racism, it says across the nation, authorities have permitted nearly 80% of all municipal solid waste incinerators linked to lung cancer, high blood pressure, higher risk of miscarriages and stillbirths, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma to be built in Black, Latino, and low-income communities, according to a complaint filed with the federal government against the state of Florida. Federal lawmakers slowed in investing in public housing as people of color moved in, leaving homes with mold, vermin, and other health hazards. I went into a class a couple of years back about heavy metals. There are homes with lead pipes that have been left untouched, unremodeled, and have been dilapidated for years without a care in the world. All of you should know the people that are moving into those decrepit, unremodeled homes with those lead pipes and the other health ailments are Black people and Hispanic people that it's rented out to for completely cheap. And guess what? Those are also high crime-ridden areas. Heavy metals tamper and mess with and shut down certain parts of the brain, particularly your frontal lobes. And depending on which one, very much neurologically affects you to the point where you can no longer make the right and proper choices, but rather you'll become degenerate, you'll become more slower and more malicious in thinking, which leads to a life of crime. It says federal lawmakers slowed investing in public housing as people of color moved in, leaving homes with mold, vermin, and other health hazards. How many of you know people that have asthma, that have bronchitis, that have respiratory issues? Are they not your own people? Are they not your own people? GANAN said disproportionate economics makes this possible. When you're given the worst foods in slavery and make them delicacies, health issue will continue to exist. Absolutely. The pandemic, it did expose the racism in healthcare. It did. And they put plants in rural areas, which that toxic air breathed in by us, and we are the ones affected. Of course, we're also living in the areas with the highest amounts of pollution. Now let's continue. Oh, look, another state. And Louisiana. We have brothers in Louisiana. Pay attention. And Louisiana and other states passed laws allowing the carrying of concealed firearms without a permit, even though gun violence is the #1 killer of kids and teenagers. Black youth ages 1 to 17 are 18 times more likely to suffer a gun homicide than their white counterparts. If it just gave the statistics back in 2014 saying that for every, million deaths there are by gun, said that 646 males are at the top of the list 11 years ago, what rate and number do you think is at now? There's a picture I saw a while back of the 10 top cities that are the murder capitals of the United States. And if that list has been updated, I believe New Orleans topped the list at 350,000 homicides more than Chicago, Philadelphia, and other areas on the list. The number one killer of kids and teenagers. In the research, and we just saw that black youth ages 1 to 17, one because, of course, they're the victim to gun violence, are 18 times more likely to suffer a gun homicide than their white counterparts. People are literally dying because of policy decisions in the South, said Bakari Sellers, a Democratic former state representative in South Carolina. KFF Health News undertook a year-long examination of how government decisions undermine black health, reviewing court and inspection records and government reports and interviewing dozens of academic researchers, doctors, politicians, community leaders, grieving moms, and patients. From the cradle to the grave, black Americans suffer worse health outcomes than white people. What was that? Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 19. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 19. Apaya, can you pull that back up? I'm going to read it again.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 19.
Before he reads that, it says, from the cradle to the grave, black Americans suffer worse health outcomes than white people. Go ahead.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 19. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in.
Right.
And cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out.
Cursed shall you be when you're born from the cradle. Cursed are you going to be when you go to the grave. And Moses said, by reason of strength, you will probably not even live past 80. With the average median age of the United States of the oldest person living is 77.5 years. Just like Kawan said, from the womb to the tomb. Sister Kayla said, it's sad to see these days kids are using guns than learning how to use martial arts. Exactly. So continuing, it says, they endure greater exposure to toxic industrial pollution, dangerously dilapidated housing, we just read that, gun violence, and other social conditions linked to higher incidence of cancer, asthma, chronic stress, maternal and infant mortality, and a myriad of other health problems. They die at younger ages, and COVID shortened lives even more. Says disparities in American healthcare mean black people have less access. When we say black people, we're also going to include the other stick, which is the Northern Kingdom. We're not just going to talk about Judah here, even though the article is. Says disparities in the American healthcare mean black people have less access to quality medical care, researchers say. They are less likely to have health insurance, and when they seek medical attention, they report widespread incidents of discrimination by healthcare providers, a KFF survey shows. Even tools meant to help detect health problems may systemically fail people of color. All signs pointed to systems rooted in the nation's painful racist history, which even today affects all facets of American life. So much of what we see is the long tail, as the scripture said we would be, of slavery and Jim Crow. And Andrea Dukas, a vice president of health policy at the Center for American Progress, a nonprofit think tank. I want to stop there. I'm going to stop there. Go back. Matter of fact, get Zechariah chapter 1 and verse 15. This article here is the emphasis on tonight's lesson.
This is Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. They helped forward the affliction. As if we're not already being punished enough, we're being punished enough through and through to the utmost max possible.
And all of the statistics are against us. Literally. In fact, there was probably something more I wanted to get. Apayat, can you scroll down to an ineffective government response? All right. So it says the federal government did not even begin to track racial disparities in health care until the 1980s. Does anyone know why? Does anyone know why until the 1980s the federal government did not begin to track racial disparities in healthcare? There's a reason for this, why they finally started paying attention. Does anyone know why until the 1980s they finally started paying attention to the racial disparities? All right. Since we got no answer. So does anyone know why up until the 1980s the federal government did not track the racial disparities in healthcare? Apayak said a lawsuit. Nope, not exactly. Sister Eggy said, and they are finding other ways to kill us by saying it's okay to be like the same sex, killing our brown men without a gun. To this question, not precisely. The reason why the federal government didn't begin tracking it until the 80s was because of the crack epidemic and mass incarceration. It wasn't until that happened that they then started paying attention, because we were mass being locked up, and of course it targeting black men that they were deeming as predators and super predators for their political campaigns to become elected. Bill Clinton. It wasn't until that point in time that they then began to pay attention, because black women particularly being left with no man in the home and giving birth to babies that also had crack inside their systems, that's when they started caring and started paying attention. No man being in the home means government assistance that you have to give, food stamps, and so on and so forth, pertaining to the assistance that these women that have no men in the home now need. So in continuing, it says the federal government did not even begin to track racial disparities in healthcare until the 1980s. And at that time, disparities in heart disease, infant mortality, cancer, and other major categories accounted for about 60,000 excess deaths among black people each year. So this is nothing new. Elevated rates of 6 diseases, including cancer, addiction, and diabetes, accounted for more than 80% of the excess mortality for black and other minority populations, according to the Heckler report released in 1985. During the past 2 decades, there have been 1.63 million excess deaths among black Americans relative to white Americans. That represents a loss of more than 80 million years of life, according to the 2023 JAMA study. You guys hear that? It said during the past 2 decades, there have been 1.63 million excess deaths among black Americans relative to white Americans. That 1.63 million excess deaths among black Americans represents a loss of more than 80 million years of life. Represents how much death there is in our communities compared to how much more of others are living while we're dying. We're dying much more at a faster rate than they're being born, I'll put it. All right. Apayak, let's pull up the shorts. Let's pull up the first one. Let's understand the roots of this Jim Crow system. Let's understand the roots of how all this began and started. I have a couple of shorts before we get into the last few articles to help explain and understand how this system does not care, nor does anything today to help us. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Racism is a huge reason we don't have universal health care in America. Racist white people, especially in the South, worked for over a century to make sure health care is hard for Black people to get. And their biggest spokesperson was a man from Germany named Frederick Ludwig Hoffman. He worked for one of America's largest insurance companies, and he wrote a book championing scientific racism that was used to argue against a single-payer healthcare system. His 1896 book, Race, Traits, and Tendencies of the American Negro, claimed providing healthcare to Black people would be disastrous for both races, and that for Black people, gradual extinction is only a question of time. He concluded that easy conditions of life and a liberal charity are among the most destructive influences affecting the lower races, since by such methods the weak and incapable are permitted to increase and multiply, while the struggle of the more able is increased in severity. Then, when Teddy Roosevelt's endorsement of social insurance was gaining traction in 1915, Hoffman stepped in to oppose it. For 4 years, from 1916 to 1920, the insurance company he worked for, which had obvious financial interest in opposing government-run health insurance, paid to send him across the U.S. to media events and congressional hearings to share his racist arguments against a national healthcare system. And it worked. The idea has never gained enough traction in state legislatures or the U.S. Congress since. Hoffman's racist theories even continue to influence policies long after he died. Some insurance companies still charged higher premiums to Black people all the way up until 1984. If not for scientific racism, the U.S. might have joined the rest of the developed world with a national healthcare system in the early 20th century. Instead, we're stuck with a system that puts profits over people and treats healthcare like a commodity and not a human right. Racism is a huge reason we don't have universal healthcare in America.
All right. Did you guys hear the part where she said the guy put in his book that it was only a matter of time before the Black race dies out? And that was back in the early 19th century. He said 1916 to 1920, roughly almost 100 years ago when he wrote this book and said and explained in it why Black people didn't deserve health care. He said it was only a matter of time before they died off. And interestingly enough, with the statistics we brought that have been brought out and everything that's been read so far, that all of this has been planned by design. Read Zechariah 1:15 again.
This is Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction.
So, by design, the affliction was gladly put in place, and decade by decade, year by year, all of it was thoroughly planned out, literally to wipe us out as if that's possible and capable of happening. Apayak, play the next short. Some of you that are in the medical field or know people in the medical field very much can pay attention to this and keep an eye out with what's being brought out in these shorts, because it's very, very essential that you pay attention to what's going on around you pertaining to the lifestyle that people are living and the lifestyle they have. Go ahead, Up.
Do Black people feel pain the same way as white people? A 2016 study showed that 50% of medical students and residents who were studied thought that Black people couldn't feel pain the same way because they had thicker skin or their nerves didn't work the same way. Where is this from? It's a holdover from the days of slavery when white people had to feel better about using slaves. Black people used to be operated on without anesthesia and were used in studies without their consent. So this was a convenient lie. To this day, Black people are less likely to get the same treatment in terms of pain medication. They're more likely to wait longer in the emergency room. They're less likely to be taken seriously. It's a holdover from the days of slavery. It's a call to action. Doctors, nurses, anybody in the medical field, check your implicit bias. If you see somebody spreading these lies, stop them, but still stop yourself every time you're caring for somebody who has a different skin color than you and check your bias.
So What she was mentioning and making a notion to was the man I mentioned earlier, Dr. Marion Sims, who's known as the father of gynecology. The Captain Shamak had brought him out and spoke about him from the lecture he had pulled out a couple of weeks back pertaining to what he was doing to slaves and what he was doing to babies and operating and performing on women by having their vaginas pried open to operate on with the tools that he was using to pry open their vaginas. Considering that it was during slavery, roughly 200 years ago, anesthesia didn't exist back then. And no, there was no consent and no asking. If any of you didn't know, the reason why they ask for consent forms and they come to the parents about vaccinations or health or whatever it is, so on and so forth, it's rooted from slavery. That's why they do it. It's because back then you didn't have a choice and you couldn't give consent without a choice. So the reason why today, as she explained in the video, that they think black people can feel no pain is because of everything we've gone through. We have thicker skin, and because we're more resilient, if you want to say that, they think that we'll be just fine. And it's also another reason why it keeps us from the healthcare system from ever getting checked on and thinking that we're okay when we're really not. Apayak, you got the next one?
Wasn't there a president that came out and said, like, well, not a president, there was somebody that described how black men and women couldn't make facial expressions when they saw something happening on a plantation or something incriminating happening to somebody close to them. So they didn't think that they had emotion. But
you're probably mentioning Drapetomania. Forgot what the white guy's name was. He said it was a disease or an illness when a slave wanted to escape from slavery. Or if that's different what you're mentioning, but I do remember that being
different. It's extremely similar. And it all goes into the case of where healthcare is today. Because they didn't necessarily think that black people felt emotion because they weren't allowed to feel emotion. When they saw someone getting raped on a plantation or saw somebody getting hung,
yep,
they weren't allowed to cry. They weren't allowed to break a sweat. Otherwise, they'd be next. So
you have to search that. I was unaware of that. Go ahead, Apayak, play while Kaz gets that.
Welcome to my channel again. A special welcome if you are new. How did Jim Crow laws affect healthcare in America? The Jim Crow era, spanning from the late 19th century to the mid-20th century, enforced racial segregation and discrimination, deeply impacting healthcare access for African Americans. Hospitals were segregated, and black patients often received substandard care or were denied treatment entirely. For example, in the 1930s, black women were 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. Today, disparities still exist. Activism and policy changes are crucial in combating systemic racism in healthcare, ensuring everyone receives equal care. How can we continue this fight for justice and equality so that we don't go back? Leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Welcome to my channel.
All right. So all of you heard him bring out a statistic back going to the 1930s that is very much well alive today about the fact that 55, I believe it was, black women die for every 1,000 babies that are born. Which means the lack of health care and the fact that they are not cared about enough to keep them living. This is the last one. Go ahead, up.
It's Black History Month. I'm Dr. Tia, and we're talking racism. The effects of systemic racism can literally be measured in the body. Studies show that minorities are under more stress than average. We know this because they have higher cortisol levels than average. Cortisol goes up whenever we are exposed to stress. Why do y'all think minorities in the US are so stressed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. It's Black History Month.
So I only wanted to bring this one out to show that because of everything being against us, we're more stressed out than everybody else, and stress pouring and seeping into all parts of our life. This is why we're more likely to die younger. This is why we're more likely to develop health issues and problems faster than everyone else. And this is also why, another reason of why we have to keep going to the doctors. and they only treat the problem. They don't cure the problem. When you cure the problem, it goes away. When you cure the problem, you don't go back to the doctors. They treat it, which means you go back. They treat it, which means you're not done. You have to keep taking the next medication, the next pill, so on and so forth. With all that being said, we're in the season of spring right now. With spring out, with the season of spring coming in, and with the sun being out, the sun is one of the greatest things the Lord has created for our benefit and for our health. Vitamin D3 is responsible for so much functions within the body that now is the time to get it, because, of course, it's sunny out. And the reason why I'm saying that is because with the weather getting warmer, there's one thing everybody can do to just simply cut and ward off all of these statistics that are killing thousands of us every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. AHLAHAYANAWA, the last, can you pull up the first article, the world's largest study? GANAN, they treat the symptoms, not the problem. Last article, it should be in the notes for you. World's largest study. All right. Here's the one thing that everybody can do more, and now that the sun is out and is getting nicer. Let's read this article. This is from the European Society of Cardiology. This is from scardio.org. It says the world's largest study shows the more you walk, the lower your risk of death, even if you walk fewer than 5,000 steps. It says the number of steps you should walk every day to start seeing benefits of your health is lower than previously thought, according to the largest analysis to investigate this. The study, published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology today, found that walking at least 3,867 steps a day started to reduce the risk of dying from any cause, and 2,337 steps a day reduced the risk of dying from diseases of the heart and blood vessels related to cardiovascular disease. However, the new analysis of 226,889 people from 17 different studies around the world has shown that the more you walk, the greater the health benefits. The risk of dying from any cause or cardiovascular disease decreases significantly with every 500 to 1,000 extra steps you walk. An increase of 1,000 steps a day was associated with a 15% reduction in the risk of dying from any cause, and an increase of 500 steps a day was associated with a 7% reduction in dying from cardiovascular disease. So imagine 1,000, 14%, 1,500, 21%, 2,000, 28%, so on and so forth. It says the research is led by Maciej Banak, a professor of cardiology at the Medical University of Lodz, Poland, an adjunct professor at the Sakharov Center for the Prevention of Cardiovascular Disease, Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, found that even if people walked as many as 20,000 steps a day, the health benefits continued to increase. They have not found an upper limit yet. The upper limit being if you even go past 20,000, it's going to slash and cut your risk of getting any kind of ailment and or disease because you're moving. When you're moving and you're walking simply, blood is flowing and moving throughout the entirety of the body. When you're walking, blood is being pumped to the brain, meaning it's a lighter form of cardio. When you walk, your mind is much more clear because your brain is operating at a higher capacity because you're moving the entirety of your whole body. You're not sedentary, which means you're just sitting down and you're stationary, and you shouldn't be so for an extended period of time without moving. So the reason why I'm saying this is because the more you move, and as you should be moving, it's healthier for you. The human body is a machine, and you were made to move. You were not made to sit still, and you were not made for or at least for an extended period of time. You are not made to just be stationary and to just gain weight. That's unhealthy. If your heart pumps blood, you should be moving because movement is required to keep and get the blood flow going. Last article, Apayak, pull up the next one. Last article. And so Zamaya said vitamin D and magnesium work hand in hand. Absolutely, they do. Best work to keep cortisol levels down is walking daily. Absolutely. Cardiovascular exercise strengthens the heart, improving blood flow, lowering blood pressure and cholesterol, improving mood and your sleep. Absolutely, Ganan, the water for that. All right. It says walking for heart health. This is made this year on February 21st, according to Mass General Brigham. Walking is a very simple way to maintain or improve your cardiovascular health. It's free. You don't need any special skills or equipment. It's one of the safest ways to be active, and it comes with many additional mental and physical benefits. Walking has been essential to human health and survival, from hunter-gatherer tradition to working on farms. We've been living a sedentary lifestyle for the past 100 years, and it's led to higher rates of, we read it earlier, heart disease, stroke, heart attacks, high blood pressure, hypertension, and high cholesterol, says Hickam Scally, an MD at MSC, a Mass General Brigham cardiologist who treats patients at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Walking is one of the necessary functions of our bodies, and it can add and prevent those conditions, he adds. It comes naturally and is just as important to survival now as it was 100 years ago. The cardiovascular benefits of regular walking include lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, lower risk of premature death, improvements in the health of your arteries, and the prevention of weight gain. Obesity is the number one problem, is one of the top problems in this nation. I believe it was estimated, according to statistics, at least 1/3 of the entire American population is obese. And that also includes babies, newborn babies, that is. It also has many additional benefits. Walking can boost mood and energy, help you think more clearly. If any of you have been told in your lives, especially by people that have been in long-term relationships, especially older people, the number one thing they'll always tell you when you're having problems in your relationship or you're arguing and the conflict isn't going anywhere, there's no solution, they always tell you, walk away. Why? Because it helps you think more clearly. Walking also improves your sleep, prevents other diseases such as diabetes, dementia, and some cancers and infectious diseases, reduces inflammation throughout the body, reduces stress, it strengthens bones. All these health issues interact with each other. Patients who have obesity are more likely to have high blood pressure, and patients who have high blood pressure are more likely to have diabetes, sleep apnea, and depression. And they're at a higher risk of cancer and premature death, Dr. Scally says. Walking improves all of those issues, which eventually leads to better health. Now, we did read the article earlier that mentioned how much you should be walking a day. It's different for every single one of you due to the fact that we do not all have the same body makeup. We're not the same age, and it depends on male and female. So the reason why I'm bringing all this out is because I'm going to eventually do another class where I can diverse and expound and amplify more of this to tackle what it is we can do to lower these rates and statistics, and to also explain on behalf when we're teaching our own people one of the biggest problems we have pertaining to the nation of Israel. That's our health. I've explained through the articles the history of it. And this is just one simple thing that everyone and all of us can do to slash the rates of cardiovascular diseases, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, stress, stroke, so on and so forth. This one simple thing we are all capable of doing. And again, with it being spring and it being nice outside, take a walk. Put your feet in the grass and ground. Let the earth charge your body. be in the sun to get vitamin D3, which is also essential for bone health. We also suffer as a people from osteoporosis, which is brittle bones that are capable of breaking easily. Let's get Sirach chapter 30 and verse 15.
This is Sirach chapter 30, verse 15. Health and good estate of body are above all gold,
right?
And a strong body above infinite wealth.
The health and the estate of your body is comparable to fine gold. It is also compared to infinite wealth. Come on, touch trees. Any of you notice we have shoes on for a reason, because it disconnects us from the earth purposely. So with this being said, I had taught the last class about the parable of the hired laborers, and our works being put through the fire. Gold was at the top of the list because it's the most heavy precious metal that people in the ancient Near East traded in. It's important that you all take care of yourselves, because every single day that we stress out, we may have conflict, we fight, we argue, so on and so forth. You don't know what may come up pertaining to your health that you're not aware of, that you probably didn't get checked out, or when's the last time you've been to the doctor, so on and so forth, and something happens. You never know. And if it's happening to people around you, take heed yourself and help them if you can. Because death is not a respecter of persons, because it can happen to any one of us. You have a temple, take care of it. Because in this life, this is all you get. Any comments, questions, concern, anything anybody wants to add before we close out the class? Please keep in mind of everything that was said tonight pertaining to the articles and the videos. It's very essential and important that we pay attention so that we don't lose ourselves and become a part of those statistics that were all mentioned. Because we are the #1 people that suffer from all of those diseases and illnesses that were on the list. Quash, just a Kayla on the bar. It's important that we keep in the know and we inform. It's important that we keep in the know, because, you know, brothers that are in the southern states, and mentioned South Carolina, brothers in North Carolina, you're north of South Carolina. It mentioned Louisiana, it also mentioned Florida. Brothers that are living in the southern states need to very much take heed and pay attention, because it mentioned the southern states specifically in the article were Black populations, and we can also include the Latino and Native American populations that are predominantly affected by the healthcare system with lack to adequate and efficient healthcare. All right, with that being said, I madim upanya makwadam. This is Psalm chapter 119. This is the lot. My soul cleaveth unto the dust. Quicken thou me according to thy word. I have declared my ways, and thou heardest me. Teach me thy statutes. Make me to understand the way of thy precepts, so shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according unto thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy law graciously. I have chosen the way of truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. I have stuck unto thy testimonies, O Lord. Put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments when thou shalt enlarge my heart. In the name of Yahweh, Bahasham, YHWH, the water from Yad, Aman.
Aman Shabbat. Aman Barak. Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shabbat.
Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shabbat.